let's start off the bat. We've had a sudden election call. Some are complaining across the country, why now? This is not the right time. What about the West? What is their reaction to this sudden election call?
I have to wonder how many people are even really paying attention yet. To have an election call in the middle of summer, lots of people are away. I think it took people by surprise. And it's a big question of why you would call an election just when everybody is warning about a fourth wave. And we're having yet another discussion about what round of restrictions we might have. So I think the timing was a bit strange. And I don't know that the Prime Minister got off to a very good start in the first week of the campaign. You would think that because he's the one who made the decision to call the election, that he would have had a pretty clear message and a pretty clear agenda to run on. But with reports that he's now asking his caucus for wow ideas so that he can run out the rest of the campaign, it doesn't look like he's very well prepared for it at all.
Well, you mentioned COVID, and I didn't even think about when I think of issues affecting the West, but there is actually, I'd say, a good difference between how the West has handled COVID and how we have here in Ontario. You live in Alberta, I live in Ontario. We still relatively have quite a few restrictions here. Alberta lifted them all. British Columbia, they're kind of slowly getting into imposing restrictions. But how does a COVID election fare in the West versus how we seem to be not so happy with it in the East?
Well, I think this is one of the other reasons why we've got a schism in the country, is that it does seem like when Quebec does something, there is a lot of federal deference to Quebec's approach, whether it is their approach to bringing in a passport or declaring themselves a nation or putting restrictions on religious symbols in public life. Nobody wants to dare say anything that, about Quebec being offside with Canadian values. Mm-hmm. But it does seem like when Alberta wants to take a bit of a different approach, we get dogpiled on. And so sure enough, our premier was under great pressure over the last year and a half. He made the point of saying he wanted to balance lives and livelihoods. He always talked about looking at the harms that are caused by lockdowns and making sure that those get mitigated. I think he's the only political leader in the country talking that way, quite frankly. And the reward for that is to have the targeting from the federal government, and the federal government trying to bring in mandatory vaccination and vaccine passports through the back door, even though our premier has said he doesn't want them. So it seems to me that this is another area where we see that Alberta has become a bit of a punching bag during the campaign, and that's not the way to build national unity.
And the premier you speak of is Premier Jason Kenney out in Alberta. Okay, so we have about 50 seconds before we have to go to commercial. So in just broad strokes here, what are some of the key issues that the West is concerned of?
I think the main issues are going to all center around what the government's plan is on the energy sector. They launched a just transition consultation in July, just before announcing that we were going into an election. We still don't know what that means, and we need to find out.
Okay. Well, it seems we have several weeks, or I shouldn't say several, few more weeks left of the campaign. Anything can change. We saw the difference between week 1 and week 2. Polls changed dramatically. Issues have come up. Of course, then there's the Afghanistan factor. So there's still a lot that can happen between now and Election Day.